Hello and welcome to another episode of PodcastDX, the show that brings you interviews with people just like you, whose lives were forever changed by a medical diagnosis. I'm Lita.
And I'm Ron.
And I'm Jean Marie.
Collectively, we're the hosts of PodcastDX. On today's show, we're speaking with Zain about cerebral palsy. Good morning, Zain, and could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, good morning. My name is Zain Bando, and I am a 21-year-old college student who's currently studying journalism at the University of Illinois in Champaign. And after graduation, I hope to pursue a career in broadcasting or as a beat writer for a sports team. I don't know what sports team that would be yet, but it's something that I've always been interested in. And it's just a passion that I've always had, and I'm very glad to be pursuing it. So thank you again for having me on today. I really appreciate it. And sorry, my pronunciation is actually Zan. I know that there's an I in my name, but it actually isn't pronounced literally. So if you think of the word Van, that's how my name is pronounced.
We will take that I out. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no.
Sorry about that, Zan.
We appreciate that. Zan, can you start us out by actually telling us and our listeners what actually is cerebral palsy?
Sure. So that's a great question. So according to the Mayo Clinic, cerebral palsy is a group of disorders that affect muscle control, movement, muscle tone, or posture. It's caused by injury or malformation, which occurs to the brain as it develops more often before birth, during the birthing process, or just after birth. There are two main forms of CP: congenital and acquired.
Right. That I've read also in the Center for Disease Control here in the United States that the risk factors for cerebral palsy, and I'm going to abbreviate it as CP, is that it's important to know the risk factors. Some of the risk factors for congenital CP are a low birth weight, so children who weigh less than 5.5 pounds at birth, and that's 2,500 grams, and especially those who weigh less than 3 pounds at birth, so that's about 1,500 grams, they have a greater chance of having CP. A child that is prematurely born, and that's children that are born before the 37th week of pregnancy, and especially if they're born before the 32nd week of pregnancy, they have a higher chance of having CP. Intensive care for premature infants has improved a lot over the past several decades, and babies that are born very early are more likely to live now, but many have medical problems that can put them at risk for CP. Another risk factor is multiple births. Twins, triplets, and other multiple births have a higher risk for CP, especially if a baby's twin or triplet dies before birth or shortly after birth. I don't know why that would be, but that's what they're saying. Some, but not all of this increased risk is due to the fact that children born from multiple pregnancies are often born early or with low birth weight or both. Children that are conceived with artificial reproductive technology, abbreviated as ART, infertility treatments, those pregnancies that result have a higher risk of CP. Most of the increased risk is explained by preterm delivery or multiple births or both. And both preterm delivery and multiple births are increased with children conceived with ART infertility treatments. Another risk would be infections that the mother might get during pregnancy. Infections can lead to increased certain proteins called cytokines, and that circulates in the brain and the blood of the baby during pregnancy. Cytokines cause inflammation, which can lead to brain damage in the baby. A fever in the mother during pregnancy or delivery can also cause this problem. Some types of infection that have been linked to CP include viruses such as chickenpox, rubella, which is also German measles, and also
cytomegalovirus.
Cytomegalovirus. Thank you, Jean. And bacterial infections such as infections of the placenta or fetal membranes. And maternal pelvic infections can cause it. Jaundice or, Jean?
Nope, I don't know this one.
Okay, Ron?
What are you looking at me for?
Zan?
Zan? Carinecterus. Okay.
I would say it's Carnix Cerebral, but I'm not sure.
That sounds good. We're
That
going
sounds
with
good.
it.
We're
That's
going to
what
go
we're
with
going
that.
with today.
Carnecterus. Jaundice is the yellow color seen in the skin of many newborns. Jaundice happens when a chemical called bilirubin builds in the baby's blood. When too much of this bilirubin builds up in the baby's blood, the skin and the whites of the eyes might look yellow. This yellow coloring is called jaundice. And when severe jaundice goes untreated for too long, it can cause that condition that Jane pronounced properly, and it can cause CP and other conditions. By the way, that condition is spelled Kernicterus.
I'm going to go with Carnicterus.
Carnicterus.
We're going to have a link on our
Website. Yes,
well, yeah.
That's the best way to
Okay.
go. Sometimes carnicterus results from ABO and Rh blood type differences between the mother and the baby. This causes the red blood cells in the baby to break down too fast, resulting in severe jaundice. Medical conditions of the mother, such as mothers with thyroid problems, intellectual disability, or seizures, have a slightly higher risk of having a child with CP. And other birth complications, such as detachment of the placenta, a uterine rupture, or problems with the umbilical cord during birth, can disrupt oxygen supply to the baby and result in CP.
Well, while that's all true, a small percentage of CP is caused by brain damage that occurs more than 28 days after birth. This is called acquired CP, and is usually associated with an infection such as meningitis, a head injury, or a problem with blood flow to the brain. Cerebral vascular accidents, for example, by stroke or bleeding in the brain associated with the blood clotting problem, blood vessels that didn't form properly, a heart defect that was present at birth, or sickle cell disease.
Zan, what are some of the symptoms for cerebral palsy?
Sure. So because this condition begins to show signs and symptoms at a very early age, an individual's parents or healthcare provider typically notice the signs and symptoms of cerebral palsy. The symptoms and effects of cerebral palsy vary depending on the location and extent of the injury to the brain. Your child might have normal intelligence or have learning difficulties. Your child might have mild difficulties with movement or be unable to control their limbs. Despite the variations in symptoms, certain effects are common among people who have cerebral palsy.
Wouldn't you say that it's kind of like a spectrum from mild to severe, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
Right.
There's definitely a spectrum. Yeah.
The CDC says that in many cases the cause or causes of congenital CP aren't fully known, which means that currently little can be done to prevent it. CP related to genetics is not preventable, but can acquired CP be prevented, Zan?
That's a very good question. While there are actions people can take before and during pregnancy, as well as after birth, that might help reduce the risk of developmental problems, including CP. Taking steps to help ensure a healthy pregnancy and to help prevent developmental problems, including CP. Acquired CP is often related to an infection or injury, and some of those cases can be prevented. But again, as it's stated, some of those cases just simply aren't possible,
Right.
and cannot be prevented. So.
Right. Thank you.
Before pregnancy, it's a good idea to be as healthy as possible. I think that's what a lot of people strive for. And make sure that any infections that you might have are treated, and any health conditions that you might have, like diabetes, are under control. And ideally, they should be under control before you conceive. If assistive reproductive technology, or ART, infertility treatments are being used to get pregnant, consider ways to reduce the chance of multiple pregnancies, twins, triplets, or more. I think some people have had up to like 12, 13 children at a time, such as transferring only one embryo at a time, and then having multiple pregnancies. It's also important to get vaccinated for certain diseases, as Lita had mentioned, such as the chickenpox or rubella. And that could, if you should contract those illnesses while it's pregnant, that could be harmful to the developing baby. It's also important to have many of these vaccinations before you become pregnant, and as we've learned, also before you have an organ transplant or any of those things as well, for undertaking any major life changes.
Right. And during pregnancy, you should have early and regular prenatal care, both for your health and for that of your developing baby. You should wash your hands often with soap and water to help reduce the risk of infections that might cause harm to your developing baby. Contact your healthcare provider if you get sick, have a fever, or have other signs of infection during pregnancy. A flu shot is your best protection, in our opinion, against serious illness from the flu. A flu shot can protect pregnant women and their unborn babies, both before and after birth. Flu shots have not been shown to cause harm to pregnant women or their babies. If there is a difference in the blood type or the Rh incompatibility between the mother and the baby, like we said, it can cause jaundice and kernicterus. I'm not going to get that one.
Nope. We'll hear about that later.
Yep. Women should know their blood type and talk to their doctor about ways to prevent problems. And also, you should talk to your doctor about ways to prevent problems if you are at risk for preterm delivery, such as if you have multiple embryos. Mm-hmm. Research has shown that taking magnesium sulfate before anticipated early preterm birth reduces the risk of CP among surviving infants.
And in addition to that, that also leaves reducing risks after the baby is born, because any baby can get jaundice. Jaundice that is not treated can cause brain damage. Just like the mom before pregnancy, make sure your child is vaccinated against infections that can cause meningitis and let's see if I can get this one. Encephalitis.
Yep,
Buckle
right
your
on.
child in the car. Buckle your child in the car using an infant or child car seat, booster seat or seat belt according to the child's height, weight, and age. Again, this is just our opinion of recommendations that should be done. Make living areas safer for children by using window guards. Keep young children from falling out of open windows, and using safety gates at the top and bottom of stairs. Make sure the surface on your child's playground is made of a shock-absorbing material such as hardwood, mulch, or sand. Carefully watch young children at all times are in bathtubs, swimming, or wading pools and natural bodies of water. That should just go for any young child in general,
Right.
disability or not. Adults watching kids in their water should avoid distracting activities like using the computer or a handheld device, reading or talking on the phone. Talking on the phone might be the most dangerous one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Make sure your child wears a helmet for activities like riding a bike. That's an obvious one. And of course, never hit, throw, shake, or hurt a child. I know these sound like common sense things, but some young mothers may not know how dangerous life is for a very young child.
That's great. Great advice, Zan. As a matter of fact, I just heard on the news that they are trying to reach out to very young mothers that really don't have perhaps a mentor. They might be on their own. They don't have the background. And those type of mothers, they just might not have all of these tools at their disposal. So hopefully this episode will help them.
Yeah, not everyone's been, babysitting.
Yeah. Great. Zan, what treatments are available for somebody that's been diagnosed with CP?
Sure. There are medications that can help with the muscle spasticity. In July of this year, the FDA has approved an expanded use of Dysport to treat upper and lower limb spasticity, which I actually did not know about, including that caused by CP for patients as young as 2 years and older. Over time, CP might cause problems with muscles, bones, and joints, and your child might need surgery to address these issues or concerns.
Right. Zan, what tips do you have for someone whose child has recently been diagnosed with CP?
While there's still an ongoing education process to be had to be had. Just from my own personal experience, I would not recommend panicking. If you can find the right resources available to parents out there today, then from when I was born 21 years ago, then I think that that's key, just because the world has evolved so much in that time. I'd say having a trustworthy doctor and focusing on the things that the child can do is a key to begin a positive outlook on life, for sure.
Right.
That's great advice. And what have you found to be the most common misconception about CP?
I've noticed that a lot of people think that that people who are born with CP are born in exactly the same way. So I would say every person born with it. So I would say the biggest misconception that people have is every person born with it has the same journey in life, while in actuality, people learn to live with the condition and focus on the things they can control.
I like this kid.
Yep. He's got a good future ahead of him.
He's got
as
a good
journalist.
outlook
Yes.
too. I mean, that's exactly. We focus on what we can do, not what is difficult or what we can't do.
Right.
So I love the way you view that, your outlook. Zain, how about your friends and family? What kind of role have they played in your life? And do you have any other support systems that you found to be helpful?
Yes. Thankfully, I have a good support system, both with friends and family. They've been extremely supportive in all of my endeavors. Anything from me scuba diving over a decade ago to participating in athletics as a social media manager in high school for the football and basketball teams. They've always been there. I also think that surrounding yourself with positive people will only make life more fun. And I've also recognized that focusing on your inner self with motivation, working out, meditation, any of those things is also a good way to reset and focus on your whole self too. Because at the end of the day, what's inside you, in my opinion, is most important. So
that's fantastic. And I have a question. You are a Downers Grove North grad, is that correct?
I sure am. Absolutely.
Okay. We have my Lita's 3 grandsons all went to Downers Grove North too. So you guys are all in good company.
All alums, yes.
Yeah, all alums. I have a question. So what first interested you in journalism, and then what drew you specifically to sports journalism? Because I hear we actually read some of your articles from Downers Grove North, and I'm just curious, what first inspired that? Do you have like a favorite journalist?
Sure. So, I mean, when I was in high school, I knew I wanted to do something in sports because in middle school, I had been a public address announcer for the middle school basketball teams, and I knew I wanted to do something similar in high school because, of course, I can't physically play organized athletics. And when I was a junior in high school, I took an intro to journalism class, and thankfully the teacher, who's actually the current head softball coach there, was really big into sports and kind of drew me into the entire industry.
Okay.
And I took in all of his knowledge, and I just knew that that's the path I wanted to pursue myself on. And thankfully, I was able to be given all of these wonderful opportunities, and I owe a lot to him, and of course, I owe a lot to my head coaches that I was able to help out as a manager for varsity football and varsity basketball my final 2 years there. And North is a place that's always going to be with me for a very long time, and I'm always going to consider Downers Grove home. So it's been a wonderful experience and a very good question.
That's great.
That is great.
I have another follow-up. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm going to follow up to your follow-up
Okay.
to her follow-up.
All right.
And then I have a follow-up.
All right. Zain, you got us going here. Do you have a podcast yet?
I did a very long time ago. At the moment, I have one right now that's called Sports Talk with A to Z. It's a podcast with me and my college roommate. You can find it on YouTube by searching Sports Talk from A to Z. We talk about everything from sports to social justice issues to things that we don't like with commissioners. It's pretty interesting.
I'm sorry to laugh.
Yeah, there's a lot packed into it. We have about like 17 episodes or so.
That's great.
We took a break from it for a little bit, but we're hoping to start it up again in the next couple of weeks because we really like doing it. And I'm also a freelance writer for Untitled.com. I cover Illini athletics and mixed martial arts, so anything from the UFC, Bellator, and numerous other MMA organizations, I write about them as well. So I'm around kind of in a couple of different media spaces, and I'm pretty easy to reach to, and we'll get to that near the end of the episode.
Right. I
just
just
wanted to let you guys-
you're just the way you're carrying us through this episode. I wish you were running our podcast.
Yeah, me too.
I told you I like this kid. So, you know what? I'm going to probably show some of my ignorance over here. You're from Downers Grove, and we are basically in the Chicago region. I'm not a huge follower of the White Sox, but I do know that the Chicago White Sox baseball team has an announcer that has CP, and I don't recall the gentleman's name, but have you ever reached out to him for any advice?
It's a very good question. His name is Jason Benetti. He's a wonderful announcer. Unfortunately, I've tried reaching out to him multiple times, but you guys may not know this. He's a very, very busy person. Not only does he do White Sox baseball, he does college football and various big-time college basketball games through the winter months. I've tried a couple of times. Things just haven't worked out, but I'm very hopeful that we can cross paths again and someday, because he does have the same disability I do, and he does tremendous work, and he's just somebody that I think a lot of people in the sports industry should continue to look up to, because he's going to be the next generation of people that are going to be coming through the pipeline. So thank you again for mentioning that. Yes, I am very well aware of who Jason Benetti is.
Okay, cool.
And then I have another question. Actually, I had several questions,
Poor
but
Zan.
I'll try to limit it.
Poor
I'm so
Zan.
sorry.
He's like, aren't these people done yet?
So, Zain, what has it been like at the university with COVID and everything, and how has learning changed?
I mean, it's been interesting. I actually decided to stay home for the semester because of COVID, but
Sure.
I think overall the university has done a tremendous job with their revolutionary saliva test. They've been able to make it through the entire semester, and I'm looking forward to going back in the spring and just seeing what a COVID semester is going to be like, because I think we're going to be with this virus for a little bit. And yeah, I think it's just one of those things that where we kind of all have to get through it and stay positive. And again, like kind of the theme of this episode has been, we need to control what we can control at this point. And yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Speaking of control, I'm going to take control of the mics right now. I'm going to cut off Gene and Lita. We're going to wrap this up, and we do appreciate your time. But one thing I did want to talk about, I think somebody earlier mentioned something about water or dive heart. But I know you've been with an organization called Dive Heart that does scuba diving for children, adults, and veterans with disabilities. But is it more than just jumping in the water or breathing underwater? How much more does that affect you doing that sport?
Oh, I mean, that's a great question. First off, they've always been a tremendous organization. They gave me, they give people opportunities where they don't feel like they have kind of an avenue to go through, and that's one of the things that I felt when I was younger when I did it. So the freedom of movement underwater is one of the most satisfying things you could ever have. I think scuba is less about the act of getting underwater and feeling relaxed, and more about all of the prep stuff, the teamwork, the communication associated with being able to work with a group of experienced divers, being able to learn all of the different equipment, kind of what the rules and regulations are, and just being with people who are going to be there that are going to be able to support you as you kind of feel the freedom underneath the water. And for some, it's an exhilarating feeling because when they're out of the water, they either don't feel that movement or sensation, or it's very difficult for them. So that's something that I've noticed. Just simply doing the sport and being a part of it for as long as I was.
That's great. That's absolutely great. Thank you. Thanks so much for that.
And Zain, how can our listeners learn more about you? You were talking about how you have there's sports talk
tips
from A to Z on YouTube. Do you have any other social media accounts?
Oh yeah, you can find me everywhere on all of the major social media platforms, from Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. My handle is at ZainBando99. That's ZainBando99. You can follow me on all of those. My DMs are always open. If anyone would like to talk, I'm always active on all the time. I'm actually a huge social media junkie, so you can find me. You can find me anywhere.
So we want to put him in charge of the podcast,
Yes.
and our social
and
media.
our social media, yes.
And my archery website.
Right. We're going to get you going.
You're going to be busier than Jason.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today, Zain. We really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you guys for having me on again. I was really happy that we were able to do this. And, I think you guys are continuing to do a good job of giving another platform for people to listen to before they can go out and make their own decisions on what's best for them medically. So kudos to you guys for that. And thank you again. You guys did a tremendous job and kept me entertained the whole time, so thank you.
We're nothing if not entertaining.
Oh, yeah. We don't charge extra. If you have any questions or comments related to today's show, you could drop us a line at podcastdx@yahoo.com, through our website, podcastdx.com, on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, or Instagram.
And if you have a moment to spare, please give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. As always, please keep in mind that this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regime, and never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this podcast.
Till next week.